Hi, I'm Georgia Raisman. I'm here on Front Up with Matt Fee, a member of the Select Board of Nantucket, and we're going to talk about a number of different things this morning. One of which, the first item, is the first item on the special town meeting, which is coming up on October 10th, and that's the article that relates to taking authority away from the Select Board in order to make it a town meeting discussion over the ability to lease town lands, town beaches specifically for erosion purposes. I personally think that once you've elected the Select Board, you ought to, a Select Board, heaven knows, has a huge amount of responsibility. It has a huge amount of data that it has to consider every week and papers that it has to work over, and you also have done a huge job in putting together a strategic plan and coming up with the way you want to handle these issues that come up week by week and month by month. And to have a particular group come and say, well, we think that this particular issue ought to go to town meeting rather than you all, it seems to me a little bit insulting. I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but how do you feel about all of that?
I'm not sure I'd use the word insulting. I understand what people are trying to do, and we've got the Coastal Conservancy article. We've got another article about sewers,
right? And
they're both kind of aimed at sort of stopping things they don't like or they don't want to proceed a certain way. And I think that isn't necessarily good government. People, I know some people thought, well, you're saying that we're not smart enough at town meeting, and that isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that town meeting can't, we don't have enough information to make the proper decision on some of these things to begin with. So none of us could make the proper decision at town meeting, and so sometimes it's pushed, like in these cases, pushed too quickly, and it's pushed, for a specific agenda as opposed to figuring out what the right decision actually might be.
I think sometimes the right decision needs a lot of information, and town meeting with these 2-minute and 3-minute blips of time in which you have to explain very complicated issues that might need a lot of in-depth discussion is not necessarily the best forum for that.
No, it becomes emotional, it becomes political, it becomes self-interest. How many times have we seen everybody come there, vote themselves a zoning change, and walk out of the meeting? I mean, that,
right.
So you really, and the hard part is the more complicated an issue is, the harder it is sometimes to get the information. And so, but once you get it and you understand it, you can actually speak about it pretty knowledgeably. But in some cases, we don't have that yet.
Yeah, and I think I'm always filled with respect for what all of the boards do, the HDC, the zoning board, the planning board, the amount of information that comes into you every week that's required to be submitted and that is voluntarily submitted is just huge. And the amount of time that you all have to spend absorbing it and understanding it and thinking about questions to ask and taking all those answers back in is huge. And to just say we're just going to bypass all that because we feel strongly about it, and we can get a lot of people to town meeting who agree with us, they feel strongly about it, it just seems like a form of mob rule. It just does not seem like the way to approach issues sensibly. I don't know if I go that far, but it's similar. And I think some of this is difficult. I'm a big proponent of beaches. I've been, I contend that we already own the beaches. Finn and I put together one big beach 20 years ago, partly because of the public trust doctrine and how Nantucket differs from, we were part of New York, we differ from the rest of the state. Right. I think there's an argument to be made that we already do own the beaches. Right. And so, so I'm a big proponent of that, but at the same time, we made a deal 4 or 5 years ago, and we made a good faith agreement to allow an application to go to the Conservation Commission. We didn't promise what the result of the Conservation Commission would be. Right. We don't know. Which you can't do.
We can't do, and if it comes back negatively, I don't think we'll license it. I don't think the board will license it. But we made a deal at the time, and then there's a lot of ramifications of some of these things. The state rules for abandoning roads are very difficult. They're very much in the favor of homeowners and developers. The town's readiness to move Baxter Road or any other road there is questionable sometimes. Are we prepared to spend that money and get that done in a reasonable time? Where is it going to happen? What are the cost of takings? If you're doing this, you have to take a bunch of property. We had to negotiate 2 $500,000 payments to have a road cut through to the Sankaty Light.
Right.
And that was just 2 property owners. We could potentially be dealing with 60 or
Right.
80 owners
Right.
out there and having to cut roads in coming through from Popus Road. So I think, if I could go back, so in hindsight's 2020, but if I could go back, I would take a more global view. Back when we were negotiating the previous license, we did it with the best intentions and the best we could do, and under the threat of a 4,000-foot rock revetment was what we were facing. And if I could go back, I would take a more global view of the entire project, and sort of try to get sign-offs for all the property owners to sign off that they won't contest when we move roads and a lot of those issues. The way to think about this is, I believe there is global warming, or maybe it's not, whatever they call it, but there is sea level rise no matter what. And retreat, even if it's planned retreat, which is what I consider what's happening there,
Right.
it's going to be messy. It's
Right.
not going to be simple, and you can't predict it in a coastal resiliency plan, and you can't plan it at a town. You can't plan it at a town meeting.
Can't plan it at a town meeting. No, and there's such a thing as institutional memory. I mean, is the way I look at it. When a town, via its board of selectmen at the time, says, "Okay, we're going to allow you to do this," you can't 5 years down the road say, "Well, we're different people now, and we're going to change our mind. We don't like that idea anymore." It is not an honorable way to proceed. If a town makes an agreement, a town should stick with the agreement. When circumstances change, if the Concom says, "Well, okay, things haven't been proven the way they said they would," or people haven't lived up to the argument, the agreement that they said they would make, that's different. But if things are the way they said they would be, and everybody's lived up to it and no one is harmed, there doesn't seem to me to be a reason to say, "Well, we're different people, we just changed our mind." So in that sense, I think institutional memory is important. If people want to deal with the town, they should feel that dealing with the town today and making a good faith agreement will hold up 2 years from now or 5 years from now if it's in a good.
It should, and we found some, on the town side, the town didn't follow through on everything and pay attention as they should have, and there's a couple things that maybe SPPF dropped. Some of that is that's life, and so, but in general, I think that's you're on the right path, and and if the Concom comes and says this is the worst thing ever for these reasons,
Then
or this
fine.
is the only thing we'd like to see it this way,
Right.
then fine.
Then
And what is kind of ironic of all this is what the town owns right now, if you go by Massachusetts law, is we own a small sliver of beach. That's going to disappear in that area relatively soon. And when that leaves, we have no say over that property. We have no say over what happens. The individuals can go individually to the Concom. They can get what they want or not. If they don't get it, they can appeal it to the state, and they'll get it. So I was the swing vote 4 or 5 years ago, whenever the date was, and I thought I'd rather see 900 feet of
Protected.
geotubes that could be pulled out and we could see how they operate,
Right.
than be at the whim of the state with a 4,000-foot rock revetment.
Right.
And people
Right.
say, well, that would never happen.
Well, it looked like it would at the time. It looked like it would.
And I think I personally think it would have.
Yeah, and it was not, and that definitely would not have been a good solution. This has been a workable solution within its parameters for right now. We'll see what happens at Concom later.
Yes.
But going on, I think other issues coming up facing us are these sort of more global housing issue. For example,
Right.
I was just talking with John Flores about 40B. I mean, I know you all do not. Luckily, you're probably smiling with relief that it's not on your lap directly anyway. Although I saw that
I
you,
spend about 2 hours or 3 hours a day on it right
Do
now.
you- do you?
Yeah,
So-
it's crazy, and it's I've tried. I've responded to every single neighbor out in South Shore. Everyone that's written about that, I started responding right at the beginning. Partly the reason I did was I think that some of the expectations were unreasonable. I think they felt as though we could actually, quote unquote, stop it.
Yeah.
And the way the rules are written, they favor the development industries. They're written by the development industries. And, we have to try to work with with Jamie and Josh and mold it the best we can. I think we're not going to flat out stop it. And that's, and so for the first, I'd say, month or two, I was kind of public enemy number one.
Yeah.
And
well, number 3 after Jamie and Josh.
Oh yeah, oh thank you. Yeah, those guys. So I've got good company
Three,
then. But then after after a while, I think as the hearings went on, I think people realized that I was accessible and I talked to them, and they may not agree with me, but that this is a difficult issue. My sense from the beginning is that area, that it was way too dense. I would hope to see. I think it's the wrong place to put apartment buildings. I think apartment buildings should be in the town areas. They should be a quarter-mile radius of the Stop and Shop or some other commercial centers, so we aren't as car dependent. I think putting, sort of car dependent lollipops out in the country, even if 40B allows it, that's not good planning. It's not, it's not what our master plan says, or it's certainly not what the comprehensive plan said. And so I think from that perspective, it's not a good thing. And I think that the density of Sachem's or Beachbum is appropriate. And I think, if there's enough profit in there, which, I was assured there was early on, then maybe some more tiers of affordability. 25% affordable doesn't get us anywhere. We're just on a treadmill,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you see, have you seen the most recent proposal, the new potential downsized proposal is up on the town website?
I did.
We're now down to 100 from 156.
Right.
It's somewhat more attractive than it was. It's still very, very big for that area.
It is, and I'm still not happy with apartment buildings. I think it's, I look at it, it's like sort of like Meeting House Square with, sort of a larger version, of that Meeting House out by Delta Fields.
Yeah.
And that works relatively well. But that, again, that's designated as town, and there's, a commercial node right nearby. So I think it's, but I think they've made some steps in the right direction, and I would hope that they have a little further to go.
Yeah. Now, what do you think we could offer by way of an inducement to help them move in that direction, given that 40B is so friendly to developers and the appeal process is so friendly to developers?
I'm not sure that there's an incentive necessarily. I think, maybe we could waive some fees and do some other things. I think really what the town has to do is just say, we're going to solve this. We're going to build some units, or we're going to give the land, and they're all going to be 40. They're all going to count toward the shy, and we're going to settle this because, and we can't. I don't think we should be getting distracted by. But some people need 100%, and some need 120. Let's take care of the one that causes this issue first. Let's take care of the 80% and get those houses built and get up to our 400, 450, 500 units, and then work on the other things that we need. Places like Aspen, Colorado, and places like that deal with the housing, they don't do it as a percent. The 40B is a percentage of your year-round housing. So we have 4,000 year-round homes, we need 400. They do it as a percentage of all the housing, and they aim for between 20 and 30% in some sort of affordable bracket. We are so far off that number.
Right. No. We're fortunate in a way that it's only 10% of
we are, but I think we have to be cognizant
permanent.
that we need to, we have to have a bifurcated market. If we want to have people live here, we have to have, they have to be permanently affordable, and we have to have a way to, to encourage those, encourage more affordable housing, whether it be second dwellings, whether we, make second dwellings be affordable or be year-round or be covenanted somehow. We have to really start thinking about it because the island is a finite resource. We only have so many square feet and so many roads, and what we're doing now is just pushing more pressure on all of us peak season.
What do you see as the town's ability to provide housing for firemen and policemen, for example? I mean, is there anything we can do as a town?
We're trying to figure out how to do it legally. There are some roadblocks. We think we may have some ways to do it. I think we need to. I've got 45, 50 employees in the summer, and I house 35 of them. So the town has to be able to do the same thing. And so that's the direction we need to be heading.
I was talking to Keith Mansfield because I've been going to the Citizens Police Academy, and when I was talking to him and listening to Chief Pittman, they're talking about how policemen, it's often a good idea for policemen and firemen to be housed near each other, if only because their schedules are such that being able to come off work at 4 o'clock and go to sleep, not live in a neighborhood where somebody's coming off at 4 o'clock and going to sleep next to a neighbor who's listening to a football game and having a party, is important. So it would seem to be that something like town-sponsored housing for firemen and policemen might be a valid goal.
I think it would be, and I've drew up sort of my thought of, with my experience with something natural. I've drawn up my thoughts and shared them with, I think, Jason and Tucker, and we haven't got anywhere yet. But I haven't gone to the chief yet, but I will. And I think the backside of the fire, I think from a planning perspective, an aesthetic perspective, I think the backside of the fire station, police station, could have row housing. It could have housing like the yacht club just put in, and it's beautiful. And it would be perfect for guys 22 to 30 or so, 35, before they start their family, and etc.
Right.
And we might find that we can retain. That's the guys that we're having trouble keeping now.
Right.
We might be able to set up something that allows us to retain them, and they stay here and get a payout at the end. Or if they leave, they get a payout at the end, and then we still have the house to put the next person. I think there's a way to, sort of think our way, plan our way, think our way out of the problem.
Yeah.
It's like with input from people like me and other people who have had to do it for their own businesses.
Yeah, and maybe figure out a way to get those included in a safe harbor. Wouldn't that be an ideal world?
That would be an ideal world. I don't know that we would.
Happen, yeah.
One of the ideas for that, though, is interesting. And I've talked to Julian Sear and I've talked to Dylan, and they're looking into it.
You talked to John Flores.
I've met John, yeah. And I think if we could get credit for part of them, like instead of getting a 1-for-1 credit, if we got a 50% credit for our affordable housing, that would be great. That would help us. And they should, and I think the state should recognize the efforts that people have made. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars solving it ourselves, and a lot of places don't do that.
And it's in the nature of our community and our economy, as opposed to a typical suburban town, that we need to have that kind of workforce housing.
When we did the comp plan, one of the best activities we did, and it was very inclusive. We had 300 or 400 different people that were involved, maybe more than that, and we did a consensus building on housing, and what came out was that people wanted it, sort of spread throughout the island, and they wanted, they didn't want large apartment buildings and things, and they wanted, small cottages spread throughout the island, and that, it was almost unanimous agreement on that. So I've sort of been operating on that premise, in my own, develop my own property for my employees, and sort of trying to encourage the town to do the same.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen. So you are going to be running for re-election again in April.
Yes.
And have you a platform, or what are you going to be focusing on?
Oh, just please don't hang me. I want to come out of election season alive. No, I think I don't know if I have a platform. People who know me, know I've been involved, and I think they know. And I've never sort of decided this early, so maybe this will just be, this could be bad luck. I could have just jinxed myself, but I think people that know me, and they know.
I hope that you run for re-election, because it's, again, more institutional memory and more experience in having been there and done that with, in a good sense.
A great sense. You end up knowing where some of the bodies are buried, and I spend a lot of time sort of explaining sometimes to, newer members of. Here's what happened here. This is what happened 20 years ago. Here's what happened 15 years ago.
This is why we did this. It's doesn't come out of the blue.
Or here's what we have to be careful of. It depends what you're talking about. But I think it's important. And I think some of the institutional memory should, we're getting better at it, but it needs to be memorialized. All the decisions should be written and should be in a folder somewhere. And if you ever want to decide, hey, why did we do this?
You mean it's not?
Yard sale?
It's not?
Not necessarily, no.
Heavens.
No, a lot of it isn't. And, why did we, what about this yard sale? What was positive? What was negative? What did we learn? A lot of that is, a lot of it, and some of it is because, the staff is so busy. The island is under, it's not necessarily a nefarious situation. The island's under a lot of pressure, and so the staff is under that same pressure.
What do you feel about people who say the town meeting itself is just an archaic form in this day and age of trying to get together? What does the data platform say? We have 14,000 adult residents, and we try to cram 700 at most into a high school auditorium and decide?
Yeah, we have, I think I heard yesterday, we have about 8,000 registered voters right now. which is, that's a fair, that's a lot of
Right,
people.
there's a lot of people, so less than
That's
1
twice
in
as
10.
many as were here when I was a kid,
Right,
more than that.
Right,
So
right. And so we get 700 of them if the auditorium is full.
exactly.
And then how is that representative? On the other hand, what's the better alternative?
I'm not sure there is a better alternative. There's you can do representative town meeting where each area sends someone. You can do a mayor, but then a mayor is a very political situation, and and people aren't going to agree with whatever platform that person is running on necessarily or implements. So I think, I don't think that personally, I don't think the town meeting is broken. I think that we need to improve as a town on some of the sort of best practices. I think there's a compact community that the state does that helps towns improve in areas that they're weak in. We adopted the best practices for the finance department, and we had a really good hire with Brian, and it's been amazing. The difference between my first term and the last couple terms has been night and day. It's so much better. I think we need to do that in other aspects of government. We need to do it with human resources and management, and a lot of different aspects need to be sort of just, we're not a sleepy little town anymore.
No.
We're a medium-sized, busy city.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I think that we're doing extraordinarily well with you and Jason and Rita and Dawn and the whole crowd. It's just very, very good. It's the best select board that I've seen in quite a while, and I think
It
really
feels really good.
It does, and I think having a strategic plan is just a huge beginning. I mean, I don't know whether you knew this, but Jason organized a group to try to memorialize the issues that came up in the Nantucket project last weekend, which was a real act of leadership too. I mean, to try to take what we've learned and keep it going and keep thinking about it and keep making it real. And I just admire that endlessly. I think you all are doing a wonderful job.
Jason is very strong at communication and at outreach. He has a really nice way about him.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
It's just excellent. So thank you for coming by and sharing all this with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next couple of contentious meetings.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
All right, thank you.